I think the best history classes help students understand that what they're learning is not contained in the classroom walls.
In 1787, I'm told our founding fathers did agree.
Of course, some principles of U.S. history are timeless. Thank you, Schoolhouse Rock. But some lessons hit harder depending on what's going on outside. I was in high school during Barack Obama's national rise.
If you give me the same chance that Iowa did tonight, I will be that president for America.
Which illuminated the stories in my history class of Emmett Till and the March on Washington.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
My mom was a sophomore in high school when JFK was killed. I can only imagine her U.S. history teacher preparing a lesson on presidential succession while the real-world story unfolded. And right now, as always, American history is at our doorstep.
New tonight, experts say ICE is intensifying operations across the country.
They're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, they're dealing with rough people.
As we pass by the country's 250th birthday, I wanted to know how U.S. history teachers were talking to their students. It's the greatest cliche ever, but the children are our future. So who's telling them our story? And once they have that information, what will they do next? This is Say More from Boston Globe Opinion. I'm Anna Kussmer. This 3-part series is called Patriotism is a Verb. It's a journey through my feelings of despair for my country to something else, some version of patriotism. The schools in Chelsea, Massachusetts are around 90% Latino. And if you read the news, you'll know that Chelsea has been ground zero for ICE raids in the Boston area.
Immigration enforcement is having quite the impact on the Chelsea and East Boston communities.
This was the view some people in Chelsea's Bellingham Square woke up to Tuesday. Agents in bulletproof vests arresting someone and putting them in the...
Fears of ICE have chilled the city. There's been a steep decline in school enrollment, leading to funding cuts, particularly in English as a second language classrooms. Kids are staying home from doctor's appointments and other activities. I wanted to know how a teacher approaches teaching U.S. history to these kids.
I've had a student picked up by ICE and never saw him again, just gone.
Byron Williams teaches U.S. history to freshmen in Chelsea. He's a tall black man with a loud, booming voice. He's lived many lives before becoming a teacher. He was a pastor. He even played for the NBA.
Well, what I always do for the beginning of the year, I do 2 truths and a lie. And lived in New York City, wrote 6 books, played in the NBA. The lie was I lived in New York City.
2 truths and a lie. Classic teenager stuff. Mr. Williams is quick to point out he only played in the preseason, but still.
Okay, so the Kansas-Nebraska Act. The Kansas-Nebraska Act is
When I went to Chelsea High to talk to Mr. Williams, it was on the day of History Fair, the annual capstone event where the kids break into pairs and present about some topic in American history.
What I've been doing all day is I've been going around having them explain their projects to me.
Mr. Williams has a question he asks every kid.
I have a question. Again, what's my question? What's my big question throughout the whole class?
After a couple minutes of shadowing Mr. Williams, even I knew.
Can you guys talk about how the past impacts the present?
How does the past impact the present? The kids chose their own topics, but it's obvious they were influenced by this idea. Again and again, there were themes of xenophobia, racial profiling, the denial of constitutional rights.
These people are being abused and exploited to a point where they can't do anything about it since they don't fully know the rules.
I did this project because it's kind of similar to what's going on right now, due to immigration and all that. Some people... Nearly every project connected some dark chapter of American history to the current treatment of immigrants in America, in places like Chelsea, Massachusetts.
It's just history repeating itself with a different group of people, but the same motivations.
At least 3 groups presented on the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, a law that incentivized the capture of black people in free states, whether or not they were runaways.
You didn't have to be enslaved to be brought for a trial, right? You don't have to be illegal, undocumented, to be caught in the country's vice grip.
On small laptop screens, the kids put pictures of slave catchers next to pictures of masked ICE officers. Another reoccurring topic was the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, the first major federal legislation to stop immigrants from a specific place. The kids were drawn to that one for obvious reasons.
It helps them see this sort of pattern of American history. I think it helps them see that, and I think I don't want to say it's comforting, but they can put it in context that this is what America does. It's part of my job is to help them see this stuff doesn't come out of the blue.
Williams says he wants students to know that exploitation and racial prejudice have a long history in this country. What's happening right now under Trump, it's not an aberration.
One of the things that I always remind them is no more than 25% of the country were actual citizens when the country was founded because of the white male property owner requirements for voting, for holding office. So only 25% of the country had full citizenship. So it's always been a battle. So it's always been those of the marginalized voice that made the country better. It was abolitionists like William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass. It was suffragists like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. You know, it was like people like Harvey Milk pushing for marriage equality. So it's always, and I said that's one of the peculiar things about this country. It's always the marginalized voice that makes the country better. So when you see the marginalized voice now, that's all of you in this class, you are the key to making this country better.
I wondered what the Trump camp would think of this. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but still.
As for those who peddle Marxist lies about our heritage, who tell our children that we live on stolen land or that our heroes were oppressors, they're doing something much worse than slandering our past. They are slandering and attacking our future. Not going to let that happen.
In Trump's July 4th speech, he seems to point his finger right at teachers like Mr. Williams. I asked Williams how he would respond to the idea that his teaching style is unpatriotic. Williams said we cannot confuse patriotism with nationalism.
Nationalism is where, and I'm oversimplifying it, my country right or wrong, all right? That's not patriotism. You know, nationalism tends to be unquestioning. It tends to be, tries to create, in this case, a homogenized definition of what America is. But patriotism is love of country. But see, part of it is you got to be honest about who you are. Mm-hmm. So do I appreciate and marvel at the words of Thomas Jefferson? I mean, those were that's imperishable language. 250 years later, we're still talking about what he wrote. Okay. Did he own slaves? Yeah. Was he the second largest slaveholder in Albemarle County? Yes. Did he enslave his own children? Yes. I mean, that's what he did. I think Abraham Lincoln is the greatest president this country's ever had. Did he not, in a group of all black citizens who were trying to get him to allow blacks to fight, did he not tell them with the Emancipation Proclamation in his desk drawer, but for your race, we're having this war? It's a horrible thing to say. Did he say it? Yes. Do I hate Lincoln? No. I can go on and on and on. So, I mean, this whole notion, I mean, you're really getting at it's a sophomoric notion of America, that we can only tell the good stories. That's not how it works. America was founded on three things. Liberty and equality officially, and unofficially was founded on paradox. And you cannot understand the American narrative unless you put those three things together. What's the paradox? We're a country based on liberty and equality. Oh, but we own some people. We subjugate another gender, and we appropriate the land of another group. That's a paradox for a country committed to liberty and equality. It's both. See, until we understand what the country stands for, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but being American, being profoundly American in my view, is you gotta love some stuff you don't like. You gotta love the concept of free speech, knowing that concept is going to be extended to some people that I may not like personally, but I will defend their right, to have it. And that's the complexity of the country that I think has just that in my little soapbox I'm trying to revive, but I think that's what we've lost.
What is your message to the kids about patriotism, particularly considering some of them have experienced such negative experiences with particularly the federal government? What's the discussion like in the classroom of this concept?
The discussion is like starting with what I just said, what patriotism is and what it isn't. Love of country does not mean you accept everything the country does. But one of the tangible things that I do is I put up on the screen the Statue of Liberty. Mm-hmm. I says, what does the Statue of Liberty mean? And they'll say, well, it's a symbol of immigration, right? I go, no, it's wrong. We got this statue to celebrate America's 100th year from the French and the abolition of slavery. I said, look at her foot. See the broken chain? See the broken chain? I mean, the emancipation that happened. Look what she's holding in her hand on a tablet. July 4th, 1776. This is a statue that symbolizes when we got it right. So every time we move closer to getting it right, and that means at some point, all the things that are happening to people who come to this country from Latin origins, we're going to get it right. But look at that statue, because that statue is a reminder that we can get it right. And that's one of the lessons I tell them all the time.
So, Byron, you have a new book coming out about the Declaration of Independence. What is the book called?
The title of the book is Liberty and Equality in America, Examining the Radical and Paradoxical Legacy of the Declaration of Independence.
So why in 2026 is the Declaration of Independence still radical?
Well, it's radical because it started with an idea. The country was founded on an idea. They were going to treat everybody equal, and everybody's going to be free. Enslavement at the time that the Declaration was written was the norm. Now, monarchs were the norm. And then we're going to have a country based on the people having agency. That's a radical concept. Half of the countries in the United Nations have something they could call a Declaration of Independence. 250 years later, we're still talking about it. That, by definition, is radical.
It also seems like historical perspective is particularly important in understanding the power of that document, reminding ourselves of the context of the world in 1776, 250 years ago.
Right, and so that's why it's important that we take that language in a macro context. Because the notion of being free and equal in 1776 is not the notion of being free and equal in 2026. In my world, which is, I think, the world of the majority of Americans now, being free and equal in 2026 not only includes race and gender, but it also includes sexual orientation. And the reason those words still have life today is there's always been some brave souls that have reimagined what those words meant. Not to change them, but what do they mean today?
To reapply them.
Yeah, to reapply them, to reimagine what does equality mean today. Let's be honest. Our understanding of equality today is not even the understanding we had 50 years ago. That's why I love the country, because we're dynamic. We're not frozen. We're not stagnant. We can change. Sometimes against our will, but we can change.
Your family is from Texas, and I believe I read that you yourself are a descendant of slavery.
I mean, my great-grandmother, who I knew, her mother was enslaved.
How does your own personal history affect your own relationship with the ideas of America and your feelings about America?
Oh, I think for me, the first thing I had to do to get to the point to say I love this country, the first thing I had to do was cut down the thicket of hypocrisy. And you have to cut that down to see what the country could be. You know, one of the examples I like to give often, and I think this holds true for me, it's one of my favorite songs. Ray Charles's version of America the Beautiful, if you've heard it, I mean, it moves your soul. And when Ray talks about the amber waves of grain and the purple mountains' majesties, you're reminded that he can't see it. He doesn't know what that looks like, but he knows it's there. So when you ask me, how did I get to this point, I have to believe in America that I can't see, but I know is there. And that's what I mean by cutting through the hypocrisy. Because there's a country that I know is there. Any country that is created on an idea, on a set of ideals about liberty and equality for everybody, yeah, it's going to have some paradox because none of us are as moral as the ideals we hold, but I know it's there. And over time, we see glimpses. We saw it with the abolition of slavery. We saw it with women's suffrage. We saw it with marriage equality. So it's there.
Was that a process for you? I mean, again, I'm thinking about teenagers learning about the darkest moments of American history and how the learning itself is a process. Like, you can feel really, really down on the country, and then, as you say, like almost have these moments of inspiration or realization about the ideals. Was that a process for you? Like, you know, can you remember going through that, and particularly thinking about your own ancestors and what they went through?
It was a process. It was a process, but you know, I was fortunate, and I hope I fall into this category. I was fortunate to have some really good teachers.
Yeah.
You know, and nothing. I mean, myself notwithstanding, there's nothing in a young person's life like a good teacher. Not to tell you what to think in spite of what some people like to say, but inspire you to think. Will you reach your own conclusion?
What is your reflection on America 250? What are you going to be thinking about July 4th?
That the people who think that Byron Williams hates America will have their day of celebration. I'm not really looking forward to it. In fact, what I am going to do that day is I'm going to the old State House and watch the swearing-in ceremony for new citizens. I'm going to do that because I am an American by chance, but the people that are sworn in that day are American by choice, and I'm grandfathered in. Okay, they're not. They chose to be here. All the imperfections that you say people want to look at and focus on, but they still chose to be here. And you see people fighting back tears. You asked me earlier about loving the country, and I stand by my love for this country with anyone. But there's not a lot about that moves me in such a way to tears. These individuals have gone through a lot and moved to tears, and I don't know anyone, I've never known anyone who's participated, but I try to connect with that emotion in some way because that's the country at its best right there.
And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing something like this. Listen here. Oh, beautiful, far spacious skies, far amber waves of grain.
After talking to Mr. Williams, I vowed to do the same someday, spend the 4th watching people get their citizenship. But his comments brought me back to the kids. So many children in Chelsea live in terror that a federal agent will come banging on their door at any minute. But many of these kids, maybe most of them, their families worked really hard to be here. It's obviously complicated, but they chose to be here.
July 4th is to celebrate the independence of America, but it's like such hypocrisy because in that time...
In the last minutes of History Fair, I was talking to Melissa, one of Mr. Williams' students. She told me something that I'll always remember. She said, you can't compromise on human dignity.
Like, we should celebrate America separating itself from like Britain and becoming like what it is now, but at the same time, there's such like a paradox in there.
Paradox, one of Mr. Williams' favorite words. If President Trump could attend this history fair, I think he would be horrified. Each presentation was on a shameful chapter of American history, and each one drew a bleak comparison to the present day. And yet, Melissa, a teenager, could do something that maybe Trump can't. Just like in Mr. Williams' game, she can take in the paradox and hypocrisies of U.S. history and separate the truths from the lies.
I think it inspires like younger generations now. Like rebel is like how you have change. So then seeing how like younger America, how they rebelled and like they made change, like we see, like we get that example, and then we can apply that to what's going on now, and then like change America. So then future generations see our example, and it continues until like America, like, the American Revolution is finished. So the revolution is still going on.
The revolution is still going on. I couldn't have said it better myself. Say More is a production of the Boston Globe. Patriotism is a Verb is produced by me. Our editor is Jim Dow, with special help this week from David Crook and Jasmine Aguilera. Engineering and sound design by Uzair Ahmed. If you like the show, please follow us and leave a review. It helps other people find the show. You can email us at saymore@globe.com. I'm Anna Kussmer. Thanks for listening.